New Mexico Education Secretary Hanna Skandera recently told local media that the Public Education Department expects a big drop in student scores this year. The results of the PARCC test are expected to be released this month. And Ms. Skandera told the Albuquerque Journal that other states have seen a 40% drop in scores in the first round of testing after implementation of the Common Core standards. Now, are you concerned about student test scores this year? What are you hearing from your child or your grandchild's school? Get in touch with us through our website, newmexicoinfocus.org. Now, I'm joined tonight by Martha Burke, political psychologist, women's issues expert, and author. Vicki Harrison, executive director of Common Cause New Mexico, is back with us. Phil Marquez from Talk Radio Inc., and our regular Rob Nicoleski from thewatchdog.org. Thank you all for being here. Now, Rob, starting with you on this. The scores going down in a transition year might be understandable. You know, I get the sense she wants to really get in front of Ms. Skandera, meaning wants to really get in front of a curve here, because 40% would be a lot of explaining would have to happen. A lot of finger pointing would result. Has she done the right thing here by coming out this early and talking about this?
Yeah, I don't know how much good it's going to do, because I mean, that's such a polarizing issue right now, and you know, the teacher evaluation test or evaluation has been such a big target. But I think it's probably the smart thing to do politically, but I mean, this is going to really be batten down the hatches time.
Right. Vicki, you know, as we all know, as we talked about here at this table, a whole new system of how students take tests. Right. You know, you have to bring a lot more of your narrative skills, explaining things, explaining how you get to your conclusion, almost like a college type environment. And I remember at the time people saying we should expect a drop, but 40% could end up being very difficult to explain, couldn't it? Other states are one thing. Can we afford a 40% drop here in our state?
I don't think we can.
Yeah.
I think the problem is that we have so little faith, no matter what political side you're on and which finger you're pointing.
Good point.
There's something going on here, and our dropout rates are outrageous. And when you add 40% who are going to, I mean, I just think back to when I was in school 4,000 years ago, and we have to have a better way of doing things, and we have to look at other systems that are working and see how we can implement those.
Phil, we had a lot of issues back with the implementing of PARCC and Common Core. A lot of teachers at the time were saying, we're going to have problems here. This is not quite going to be working. I should also add, it's computer-based, not sitting there with a number 2 pencil and and filling in different things. You know, for teachers, where does this put teachers? Are they going to be up against the wall a little bit more than they are now? Even though the secretary has said this is not necessarily anybody's fault. You know how these things go, though.
I have a friend that's a teacher. I'm just talking to him the other day. He said we are spending more time getting these students ready for testing than we are teaching.
Right.
That's not good.
Yeah. Somehow
or another, we've got so caught up in testing teachers that we forgot what we're really there for, and that's to teach students. I don't remember these tests when I was growing up. I think we had one a year. It's no big deal. I don't even remember the numbers.
Right.
Except we did know how to learn to read, write, arithmetic. All the basics were there. So we missed something somewhere.
Yeah, interesting. Martha, does this feel like a leap forward for New Mexico, or is this more of the same, just in a different sort of a pattern?
Well, I think it's a sideways leap on Skandera's point, because I think she says, okay, the scores are probably going to go down 40%. Maybe she really thinks 30, and she'll be able to come back and say, well, it wasn't as bad as I thought.
Sure.
But here's my question. She's also saying, look, we got to cut these kids some slack. It doesn't mean they've gotten worse. It just means a transition, blah, blah. Is she going to cut the teachers that same slack when it comes time to evaluate, because those test scores are what they evaluate
Now,
on?
she has come out and said, giving the teachers a little bit of cover in her public statements so far. Does it feel strong enough to you that it's going to stick?
Well, it did not. Because, I mean, until she says, and the teachers are not going to be evaluated on these test scores because it is a transition and it's not their fault, then I'm a little bit skeptical. But I have another concern. You mentioned that it is a computerized test. Not all kids are up to speed on computers. I think that could be a big factor. Skandera has also said she has, this is strange phrasing, a civil rights reaction.
That's right.
Because parents can opt their kids out, and she says a lot of the lower income kids and a lot of kids that need more help will be the ones that opt out. Those may be the same kids that don't know enough about computers to actually sit down and take a test on a computer. So to me, the civil rights issue is whether it's fair to those kids to force them to take a computerized test when they haven't had computer training enough to do it properly.
You anticipated my next question. Interesting. I'll throw this to Vicki. The opt-out system.
Right.
Looking back at what we've had now, we've had Santa Fe. We had a lot of high-profile walkouts. We had parents, yelling and screaming, all kinds of different things. How did the opt-out system work for you when you look back on that? Was it fair for folks who wanted to take that option?
I think it is fair
Yeah.
because I think that, as Phil just said, if we're spending more time teaching kids how to take a test than teaching them, that's a problem.
Right.
And that we've gotten to a point where we have to have an opt-out and we have to have these massive walkouts. And it's just showing there's a critical problem. And I agree with Martha. I think that we need to make sure that we don't blame a lot of really good teachers for something because we're transitioning into a whole new realm. You could also say that by doing it by computers, some kids may do better. The ones who have grown up
a
on
point.
The
computers.
white suburban kids that are
Exactly.
in good
The people
schools
who
are-
may have access
Yeah.
to internet at home, which is a huge problem in this state. We have schools around the state that don't have enough computers and the parents can't afford the internet, so the kids go to the McDonald's parking lot at night and do their homework.
That's right. That's reality. That's an
That's
Albuquerque
reality in New
That's right.
Mexico.
Go to the main library downtown and see the amount of kids doing homework down there for internet access.
Absolutely.
We've had some recent hearings, Rob Nicoleski, about teacher evaluations, spinning this just a little bit different direction, about fairness, about unfairness, getting away from Park and all things going there. Where are we now on this idea of teacher evaluations and where this issue might settle for both the union and for the PED side? Where does this all
Well,
lay
this is
out?
an either-or situation.
Right.
Either the judge is going to rule that the teacher evaluations are unfair, or he's going to say this really isn't my purview. In defense of these new testing requirements, there's no doubt about it. The numbers bear it out. American kids aren't doing very well. You were talking about, we learned how to read and write and do arithmetic before. Well, the numbers are showing that we need to do something.
That's right.
And I'm not sure if opting out is really going to be a great choice. It's interesting that a lot of people who are in favor of the opt-out provision tend to be a little bit left of center, but
Fair enough.
and those are the same sort of people who like federal funding. But if we get 95% of the students, or below 95% of the students who take this test, then that federal funding is going to go away, or at least be in jeopardy.
Yeah, interesting. I want to get this in before we run out of time. A bit of a grab bag on education this week. A lot of stuff's been going on. Phil, I'll throw this to you. The idea that we've had some movement through our congressional, for this district, Michelle Lujan Grisham has sent a note to the DOJ saying there might be issues of a pipeline for special needs kids who are being treated quite unfairly, to the point where when there's discipline problems and physical problems, the police are automatically called. And we got huge problems for families. What did you make of that? That's a pretty big leap going to DOJ.
Let's make everyone a criminal and get it over with.
What do you mean by that? What do you mean by that?
Well, what I mean by that is, number one, we have these police officers in the school who not necessarily, they're getting involved, I think, in some areas they shouldn't be involved in in the education and the discipline that the school system should be able to handle. Yet somehow or another, the law enforcement gets into it. And the only answer they have is taking you out. They have to arrest you and run you off to jail.
That's right.
They're in the CBI, one of the local TV stations ran a program on that. News Bite, and they were saying the kids that were burping in class and not giving their cell phone were being arrested and taken to jail.
right.
Come on, this is
right.
getting ridiculous.
That's right. Martha, let me go a little short on time. Sorry about that, Phil. This idea that discipline equals, this has been a school to prison pipeline now for black and brown kids forever. But the simple fact is, the numbers bear out the fact that the clear majority of these kids that get arrested out of schools have mental health issues a lot of the times, and that they're not being dealt with on the front end, meaning in the school, and people just tend to give up and say, well, we'll just call law enforcement, they can deal with it. So your sense of
Well,
this.
thank you for asking. I spent a number of years as a school psychologist. And this was back in the day when we actually got help for kids
Right.
that could not do what they needed to do in school, whether it was stay in their seat or not bring a gun to school.
Right.
We don't seem to have that anymore. We seem to default to the law enforcement solution, whether it's appropriate or not. And so many behaviors that once were seen as aggravating or in need of control, are now seen as criminal. And I think it's definitely a problem. We need to go back and look at the roots. We need to look at staffing.
Do you support the DOJ taking a look at this for our system?
I think what Lujan Grisham said in her letter or in her statement about the letter was that her office was not taking a position.
Gotcha.
They were passing along a complaint from a concerned parent, which apparently did reflect other complaints that have come in. So I don't know whether the DOJ looking at it is just more law enforcement when we really ought to be having treatment and having personnel to teach people how to deal with kids with problems.
That's a good point. Which encompasses training, encompasses all kinds of different things to be able to deal with these kind of kids. You know, something's clearly not working though, Vicki Harrison, in the system. Something's not quite right.
Well, and I think that that's exactly what I'm saying about the opt-out and the testing. You know, I like the idea of people being able to opt out for a little passion there,
Right.
but whether that's a good idea, as Rob says, or not, I don't know. But something is clearly not working. And when you see the numbers of, as you mentioned, I mean, overwhelming number of kids being referred to law enforcement and the juvenile justice system when they have a mental issue going on that's not being addressed.
That's right.
And it was like 85%.
That's right.
That's insane.
Yeah,
We
it's-
can't do that to our children. And we talk about all the time the lip service and won't somebody think of the children? Well, let's really think of the children.
And this has not some anecdotal thing that's been floating out there. There's been
No.
complaints about this, Rob Nikolewski, for years, from parents, from years and years. Something has to happen here with APS.
Yeah,
It's something interesting.
I have a little bit of sympathy for the school systems in this situation because if you've got a kid who's got a behavioral problem, well, if it's burping in class, that's one thing.
Right.
But I think there have been more instances of violent attacks, and so a kid who's the victim of an attack from another child.
Right.
I mean, this is why I have sympathy for the schools, because they're thinking, well, if the kid beats up another kid, we're going to have to make some sort of good faith effort
That's right.
to make sure that the victim and his or her parents don't jump on us.
That's right.
I think there's a lot
suit.
of that.
That's right. And unfortunately, I think you might be quite right. Up next, we hear why entrepreneurship is getting a lot of attention right now here in Albuquerque.